It is very possible we have found the one thing that can push us off of Jacob deGrom for MLB DFS. That thing is Mother Nature, because for tonight, deGrom potentially dealing with some bad weather out in St. Louis to face the Cardinals, and it might finally lead to us not pushing deGrom as one of the top two pitchers in MLB DFS. We're going to break down what deGrom's outlook is like, what the weather looks like there as of right now in the morning on Tuesday, and get you set for alternatives as well to deGrom and which value hitters you can target to jam in deGrom if the weather allows us to do so. Welcome on into the solo shot. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, here to analyze Tuesday's 11-game main slate with lock set for 7:05 this evening. Outside of just deGrom, there is some other weather to note for today. Chance of rain in Washington for the Braves and the Nationals. Looks pretty okay, but I would keep an eye on that one later on. Temperatures is 50 degrees in Boston for the Red Sox and the Tigers. That is a downgrade for hitters there. Also downgrade in Minneapolis for hitters, where it is 57 degrees. That's the Twins and the Rangers. So downgrade Twins, Rangers, Red Sox, and Tigers bats due to cold weather. Finally, as mentioned, there is a good chance of rain for the Mets and the Cardinals in St. Louis. It looks like the rain odds decrease around first pitch, so it could be clear, but it's one of those situations where you'll want to check back later on to see what the weather looks like and see if we can get to deGrom in that game, because I would like to. Shocker. Who would want to use Jacob deGrom in DFS? Weird concept, but I think that it's worth keeping an eye on. I'm not going to write him off just yet. We'll talk about how to handle him in just a bit. But first, a quick reminder, today is our double dip of the Q&As. We first have Brandon Gadula talking PGA, DFS, and betting for this week Wells Fargo Championship. He'll be on at 3:30. I'll follow him at 4 p.m. with our usual MLB DFS Q&A. That's on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter pages. Also today, more PGA talk, 10 a.m. on the FanDuel YouTube page, our Heat Check Fantasy podcast with myself and Brandon breaking down the Wells Fargo Championship, which golfers we're targeting in each salary tier on FanDuel. That's at 10 a.m. on YouTube and up on the numberFire Daily Fantasy podcast feed immediately after that. So make sure you are subscribed both to the FanDuel YouTube page, but also on the numberFire Daily Fantasy podcast feed to get that right as it goes up. Hey, baseball fans, it's Dinger Tuesday. FanDuel has a new promotion going on called $5 Dinger Tuesdays. All you got to do is bet a $25+ bet on the to hit a home run prop on any Tuesday MLB game. You'll receive a $5 site credit, $25 max, for each home run hit in the game by either team, regardless if your bet wins or loses. Head over to FanDuel on Tuesdays to play the $5 Dinger Tuesday. Must be 21 plus and present in Colorado, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, or West Virginia. Refund issued is a non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Max refund $25. Terms apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Colorado, call 1-800-522-4700. In Iowa, 1-800-BETS-OFF. In Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. For confidential help in Michigan, 1-800-270-7117. In Tennessee, call the Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. Or in West Virginia, visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net. Pitching preview for this Tuesday's slate. Shocker, Jacob deGrom, highest salary guy in the slate. He is 12.5. And then it's all the way down to Aaron Nola at 9.2. That's the only other guy above 9,000. Nola, $2,300 lower than deGrom. That's the way it should be. I appreciate it. And then there's no one else above 9,000. Kyle Gibson, Nick Pivetta, Huascar Ynoa are the only other guys at $8,000 or higher for today. So if you're not going deGrom, you got a very different build, and maybe Mother Nature will take that decision out of us. But I do want to talk about deGrom and why it may be worth it to take some risk. Let's say we get to lock at 7:05 and we don't know if that game will play. I think it's worthwhile to take some risk. That's the way that I'd phrase it, because he's just that good. It's just making it look easy right now, and he gets a plus matchup to boot. He's facing the Cardinals with an 89 WRC plus against righties with a 24% strikeout rate. Doesn't really need the plus matchup, but hey, we'll take it. He's up to 5 starts with his absurd fastball velocity and crazy high fastball usage, and in those 5 starts, he has a 1.38 skill interactive ERA. That was a 1 in the first number there, 1.38, with a 48% strikeout rate. He's not walking guys, not letting up hard contact, which is hard to comprehend but you also don't expect it to stop based on the way things have looked so far. He's had 14 or more strikeouts in 3 out of his 5 starts. He had 7 and 9 in the other two starts. Now, he did ask for an extra day of rest again. The second consecutive trip through his, I guess this time he didn't ask for it doesn't seem like, but they gave it to him regardless. He went 93 pitches last time out. Still a great velocity. So I had expressed some concern at one point, but it's not a huge concern to me right now. I think we just kind of auto-lock him in as the first pitcher until we get further notice. I kind of think he's just kind of the guy you want to go at. Super high salary, still worth it. And worth a gamble for tonight, even if the weather is not ideal. So keep an eye. Again, I always recommend Kevin Roth of Roto Grinders. Check out his work. He tends to have a pretty good grasp on these things, whether a game is safe for pitchers or not. I would check out his work, decide based on that. And if there is a chance this game plays, maybe you don't go there in cash games, but for tournaments, worth the risk for me if we can get deGrom at reduced popularity. Now, for the second slot, and I guess the top alternative to deGrom, if deGrom does wind up getting taken off the slate due to rain, is going to be Aaron Nola. And there aren't a lot of pitchers who have home road splits for which we must account. Everyone has home road splits to an extent. I'm not talking about ERA, though. We can account for that with park factors. I'm talking about strikeout rates. Some guys have big strikeout rates at home, not great marks on the road. Nola seems to be one of those guys. And he's at home today against the Brewers, which means I'm going to put him second on my list here. And he is a really good alternative if deGrom is taken from us on this slate. Some guys are just kind of more comfortable at home than they are on the road. You know, we heard Zach Greinke talk about that back in the day, just preferred pitching at home. And Nola's data seems to say that he is in a similar boat. Since the start of 2019, Nola has a 30% strikeout rate at home versus 26% on the road. A 4 percentage point gap is pretty significant. It does, like a 26% strikeout rate pitcher is very different than a 30% guy. So we'd want to account for that for sure in our DFS process. He's had 8 games with at least 8 strikeouts since the start of last year. 5 of those 8 were at home. And that does include his 1 blow-up game so far this year. He had a 2-hit shutout against the Cardinals in Philadelphia. 10 strikeouts there. So I don't do this for like a ton of guys. Like it is enough. Like there are enough guys where I do look into it. But like I would say that Nola is one of the guys I actively bump up when he's at home versus on the road. And we can get that here. He's been good this year, even when you include the road starts. He's got a 3.33 skill interactive ERA with a 26% strikeout rate, getting back to limiting hard contact as well. So he's doing a good job. That makes me feel good as well. He's facing the Brewers here. They have an 84 WRC plus against righties with a 27% strikeout rate. That is the 3rd highest strikeout rate on the slate. So I'm not really sure in what context Aaron Nola's value for DFS would be higher, ignoring the fact that deGrom is also on the slate. He is at home against a super high strikeout team that does not have the best marks overall against righties. I think it's kind of the best case scenario for a guy like Nola. So I will use him here. I will use him aggressively if Jacob deGrom is not available. I think he would be the top pitcher by a pretty decent mark then. $9,200 allows you to get a lot of good bats. So I think that I'm not going to put him above deGrom just because of the situation, but I will be very, very comfortable with him if I can't use deGrom due to weather or if I just decide to differentiate a bit and go with Nola. That's also okay. So Nola on my list regardless of if deGrom is taken off our plate, but he will be the focal point for me if we can't go deGrom. The lower salary down for today is one I've been avoiding this entire year, but it wasn't because of talent. It's Huascar Ynoa, and the talent's there. And it's been obvious the whole time he's been in the rotation. The reason I couldn't get there for DFS was the pitch count. He had maxed out at 82 pitches in his first 4 starts, and no matter how talented you are, it's basically, it's not quite impossible, but it's very close to impossible to be relevant for DFS in 82 pitches. But last time out, they let Ynoa go 101 pitches. And it's not like he had some crazy final inning either. He started the 6th inning with 86 pitches, which is already a season high. They let him get 2 outs. He got yanked before he got the 3rd out. But 101 pitches is plenty enough, especially if they will let him start an inning at 86, which again was higher than his previous high to that point. So we have to upgrade our view of Ynoa pretty massively here. The ratios for Ynoa were already there. In 5 starts, he has a 2.79 skill interactive ERA with a 33% strikeout rate. He had 10 strikeouts in one of those starts before his pitch count went up. He had 9 against the Cubs in that expanded start last week. So it's not a must-have situation here for Inoue. He is letting up a lot of hard contact. And, he's facing Washington. They're not a super high upside matchup by any means. There's also weather there. And I would note the Mets on their official website have not listed Inoue as the official starter. So keep an eye on that. The Braves haven't. But I just think it's really tough to pass up a guy whose value went up so much when his salary is still $8,000. I don't think it'll be there very long. So I want to take advantage of it while he's still a value play. I am filtering in both Inoue and Nola, even on a deGrom day. Even if we get deGrom with no weather concerns, I will still be willing to go to Nola and Inoue because I think that they're good enough. Again, keep an eye on the weather for Inoue as well. Make sure he's announced as the official pitcher. Because again, the website's kind of weird right now. It has not announced him. So keep tabs on that. Keep tabs on the weather for both deGrom and Inoue. But as of right now, feeling good about them as the 1 and 3 pitchers for tonight, with Nola being the 2 and kind of the guy who's the most firm as of right now. So let's talk stacks. I'm going to try to keep in mind that we are spending for deGrom when discussing these. The good thing is a lot of these teams we'll discuss also do have studs you can target. Like let's say if we drop down to Nola, you can still target the Padres pretty easily. It just means you're getting Fernando Tatis as opposed to probably missing out on him if you go with deGrom. And I think the Padres are the top stack for today. They're facing Mitch Keller, and he's a lot like Casey Mize to me, where he's a good prospect. His velocity is up this year, and I'm hoping we'll be able to use him as a pitcher sometime down the line for DFS. We're just not there yet, and I think we should stack the Padres against him tonight. Keller's struggles have cropped up all 3 seasons, partial seasons in the majors. He had really good peripherals in 2019, but a 7.13 ERA, and last year that reversed. His results were good, 2.91 ERA, but the peripherals were really bad with a 6.94 skill interactive ERA. It was over 5 starts, so you always trust the peripherals over the results there. And the results still could be kind of fluky in that time, but it was largely due to a lot of walks. So you could write that off as being a 5-start sample, but those walks have carried over into 2021 as well. He has a 14% walk rate this year, despite the increased velocity. The strikeout rate has remained moderate as well. He has a 21% strikeout rate so far, a 9.4% swinging strike rate. So the walk rate's still high, strikeout rate's still low, despite the increased velocity. It's interesting, but not actionable as of yet. And that got him in trouble the first time he faced this Padres team. He allowed 7 earned runs in 3 1/3 innings. He had 3 walks compared to 1 strikeout. And he hasn't been great in 2 starts since then either. Those 2 starts came against the Royals and the Tigers. And now he has to face San Diego in San Diego. I think we should stack against Keller until he proves to us that he can keep the walks in check. And I don't think that's happened yet. So as of right now, I think Keller is someone we can stack against, especially with a team as good as the Padres. As far as value plays go on the Padres, I'm still not sure why the salaries on Jake Cronenworth and Will Myers are as reasonable as they are. They are $2,900 and $2,700 respectively. Cronenworth has a low strikeout rate, very good batted ball data, should be higher salary than this. Myers doesn't have the best batted ball data, but the strikeouts are in check. He can swipe some bags, as can Cronenworth, so that's a positive too. I'm going to keep on using both aggressively, see what happens, and I think that they're the 2 guys you start with when you are stacking the Padres with deGrom. You start with Cronenworth and Myers, and then see what else you can get, what else you can squeeze out of that lineup based on who is batting where. For the second stack, Sam Hentges moving into the rotation for Cleveland. He is taking Logan Allen's spot. Not sure how much better he will fare in the rotation, so I think we should stack the Royals here because that's the team he is facing for today. The last big sample on Hentges was back in 2019. That was his age 22 season. He had a 5.11 ERA. A lot of hard contact, it seems like. We don't have hard contact data from the minor leagues, but based on his ERA and based on the peripherals, seems like he let up a lot of hard contact. Not a big strikeout guy, not a lot of whiffs, and those 2 issues have seemingly followed him into the majors, and it's worth noting this is a 5 2/3 inning sample, but swinging strike rate stabilizes pretty quickly. He's at 9.7% there. I think he will wind up being someone we can stack against now that he is in the rotation, and facing a decent lineup. The Royals have a 99 WRC plus against the lefty since the start of last year. That's not bad, and it makes sense because a lot of the guys we turn to in this Royals offense for stacking are guys who are right-handed hitters who can do well against lefties. So I don't think it's like some fluke either. I'm willing to stack them here and see what happens as we get the sample on henches to increase. Unfortunately, there aren't a ton of big salary savers here to help us get to deGrom. One potential exception is Hanser Alberto. He's had, the concern with him is that he's a platoon guy. And as we've seen with the Giants every time, we need to dig into platoon guys, make sure they're playing the entire game. And Alberto's done that. He has finished every game he has started so far this year. No pinch hitting concerns, no defensive concerns. Puts the ball in the air, low strikeout rate against lefties. He's $2,200, so I do like Alberto quite a bit. Hunter Dozier is $29. Michael A. Taylor is $2,500. So if we can get Taylor, Dozier, and Alberto at good spots in the order, that would make things a lot easier for stacking if we can include all three. So I would say if you're looking for value, check out the Royals lineup, see who's hitting where, see if we can get Alberto, Taylor, and Dozier at good spots. And if you can, I'd be very willing to use them in order to make it easier to get to deGrom. Maybe if you're going with the Padres, you can get some of the studs in that lineup. But I would start the value plays, both the Padres and the Royals, to make it easier on yourself elsewhere. For the third stack, we're going to go to Philadelphia. They are facing Eric Lauer, and he had a successful first start this year. I am just not sure how long that will last. That start for Lauer came against the Dodgers, which makes it even more impressive. He held them scoreless for 5 innings. And he wasn't really in a lot of trouble, so he pitched well. Didn't let up a lot of hard contact either. But some of the issues that plagued Lauer in the past were still there. Namely, wasn't overpowering hitters. He had an 8.2% swing and strike rate. That is right in line with his last full season back in 2019. He wasn't getting ground balls. And if you have a low strikeout rate and a low ground ball rate, you need to be phenomenal at generating weak contact to get by. Lauer could do that, kind of did to an extent back in 2019, but it's hard to assume that he will. That's why I am inclined to stack against him here. And I at least know that my batters will get balls in the air. Like that's a good thing for me. If I know I can go in saying with certainty my batters will put the ball in play, put it in the air, it means I could wind up on the right side of variance, and there's big upside in that. So that makes it a worthwhile gamble to me. Again, Lauer very good last week against the Dodgers. That's a significant factor for sure. But I'm still willing to go here with the Phillies. With this being a lefty and Lauer, I think it means we can finally go back to Alec Boehm. He is really poor batted ball data against righties, but against lefties, it's a 35% hard hit rate with a 41% fly ball rate. Good results for him against lefties as well. We get a big bump here out of Rhys Hoskins. Not a value play, obviously, but I think that it is worth noting that his strikeout rate goes way down against lefties. Boehm is $2,600. I think that hopefully using him and some of the values in the Royals can help make things easier to get to deGrom. So between Boehm, Michael A. Taylor, Hanser Alberto, Hunter Dozier, Will Myers, Jake Cronenworth, got a lot of guys in the $2,900 and lower range who can hopefully help move the needle. I would keep an eye on lineups for today to see where else we can get some big value. If we can get like a viable min salary type player, I'd be willing to use them as a one-off and go with a 4-3 stack around them to make sure I can get into deGrom as much as possible. But again, make sure you are keeping your eye on the weather for deGrom for tonight. Let's finish up with things to watch. Shane McClanahan starting for the Rays and looked pretty sick in his debut. He had a 23.7% swing and strike rate. The GIFs on Twitter of his pitches were really fun to watch. I think he'll pitch well. I'm just not sure how long he'll pitch. The Rays have been very conservative with their young guys early on after the year off last year. McClanahan, 59 pitches in his first start. Realistically, I bet that 75 is his max tonight. And it could very well be less than that. He could stick around 60, go 50, I don't know. But 75, probably the max. I would keep an eye on him, kind of treating him similarly to Inoa, where we can hold off on him until the pitch count goes up. And if the pitch count does go up, then I would be willing to use him down the line. If the Mets game does play, I'd be willing to stack them against Johan Oviedo. We've got a decent sample on Oviedo now. He has made 6 starts in the big leagues and 7 total appearances. And in that time, he has a 5.02 skill interactive ERA with an 18% strikeout rate. Not a big round ball guy. It means we can stack against that. Maybe the Mets, the narrative, they fire their hitting coaches. Maybe that wakes up the bats here. Obviously not a good sign when a team has to fire their hitting coach, but probably can't make matters worse. So I do think the Mets are in play for today against Oviedo, assuming we get the go on the weather there. Finally, I'm at least okay with the Red Sox despite their poor weather tonight for hitting. They're facing Michael Fulmer, who's going back into the rotation. The 3 starts he made this year didn't go particularly well. He had a 4.80 skill interactive ERA with a 15% strikeout rate. I would note he's been much, much, much better in relief, and that's on a similar pitch count. So it's possible he surges back, and that's why I'm not leaping to use the Red Sox combined with the weather for tonight, but I am at least willing to consider them for other bats here. So the Red Sox in play, the Mets in play, but I'd rank all 2 of those pretty well below the 3 teams discussed in the stacks in the Phillies, the Padres, and the Royals. That is all the time that we have for today. Again, we'll check back in with the weather for the deGrom game later on. That is at 4 p.m. today. Brandon Gadula leads off at 3:30 with the PGA DFS and betting Q&A. I'll follow with MLB at 4 p.m. So make sure you are subscribed to the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter pages. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, Radio.com, wherever you get your podcasts. We are there, and if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. If you have questions for me before 4 p.m., I am on Twitter at JimSannes, JimSannes. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcasts. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, for setting up the video side of this call for today. Thank you, Cal, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you with MLB DFS for tonight. Let's hope this weather allows us to use Jacob deGrom and have some fun. We'll see how things play out overall. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow. This has been the solo shot right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.